This is a 1987 Suzuki Quadzilla 500. The Quadzilla was made from 1987 to 1990 and it sported a 500cc two-stroke engine. In terms of speed, the Quadzilla is one of the fastest production quads of all time to this day. It's super iconic and it's also super rare, but along with being rare, that makes getting parts for it extra hard. This one was brought to me by someone who paid $2,500 for it in hopes that all it needed was a simple top-end job. Unfortunately, once we started breaking it down, it turned out to be quite a bit more. It was a totally grenaded top end and a tanked bottom end as well. Why does it always seem that Craigslist and marketplace deals go this way? I just don't know. On top of the engine problems, this quad has seen better days in general. So along with the engine mods, we'll be taking care of some other issues this machine has and bringing back the appearance to bring this thing back to its former glory. Because she deserves it. Regardless, even with the severe engine damage, $2,500 is still a decent deal for this machine. Finding one of these in good conditions can easily bring over $10,000 in today's market. So the owner wants this quad ready for the sand dunes in 2 months. To make things even more interesting, the customer has an extremely tight budget, so we'll be working around that the entire time. So, can we get the parts and fix this thing in time for the dunes? Probably not. Will I stay up extremely late throwing tools at the wall and screaming curse words just to get this thing done? Absolutely. Let's get into it. All right, guys, we're racing against the clock here. So first thing I want to do is get the bottom end out of the frame and tear into that thing so that we can assess the damage and see which parts we need to get on order. Grab some popcorn and a cold drink because I think this is going to be a good one. All right, guys, we have got quite a mess here. I'm looking at the bottom end of the Quadzilla. Have a look. Oh, man. She is looking ugly. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see in there. Oh, you can see pieces of piston skirt in the bottom. We've got a busted skirt. Dropped right down in the crank and just got shredded. Luckily, I think the cases are going to be okay, but we have to split these things in order to clean out all those fragments and everything. We have to check the crank. The crank feels good. I don't know if anything got in the lower crank bearing. Really, it should be replaced. This is kind of going to be more on the lines of a budget build just to get this thing back together going. So we'll see what that looks like. I want to see what the crank bearings look like. I'd really like to flush everything, and honestly, I think crank bearings are a must for a replacement. I mean, really, we just won't know until we start tearing the thing apart, so let's get to it. I've got a brand new Suzuki service manual here. I couldn't find a climber for this thing. We probably won't need that for disassembling it, but it is there. And I've also got a casket laid out for our dead Quadzilla. This is where all the engine parts and everything are going to go so that we can keep it all nice and clean because, well, organized anyways, because we got the YZ build going on over here. We still haven't done the internals. I just don't want to mix up any of the parts, although everything for the Quadzilla is freaking huge and probably wouldn't fit in this tiny YZ 125 engine. Gotta be careful with that, it's a reverse thread. Everything's stuck. All right, here we go. Moment of truth. We're going to use the crankcase splitter on this thing. Slide this baby in place. That's a good sign, at least. Seems to be splitting, no problem. Whew, man. God damn. Man, these cases did not want to come apart. I think the crank was holding it up. See all these little bits of skirt and stuff jammed down here? It was dragging on both sides. It just didn't want to let the cases come apart nice and easy. So you guys can probably see we got some case damage down here. Some of those bits got shoved in here and it blew out that portion of the case. And then on the other half up here. Now, it looks bad, but the good news is I can probably, I'll Dremel that out, fill it with weld, and then use the Dremel to shape it, bring it back to its original form. And then when I surface the cases, they should be okay. But man, that thing is blown out. All right, let me flip this case half over, and we'll pull the crank out entirely, see what the other side looks like. The good news is this crank bearing is good. Actually, it looks like somebody... So in Quadzillas, they do these brass inserts around the bearings, and it looks like this one's already been done. There's already a brass insert. So that's good news, at least. All right, let's see what we can do here. Maybe this side will come out a little bit easier. You know, I guess I probably should pull the transmission out. Now what we're looking for when we're doing this is that the crank pushes out and the bearing doesn't. I really doubt that will happen though, because the other side had the brass insert, so I would assume that this side does too, which is the fix for when the cases wear out and the bearings. Yep, we're good. Bearing is nice and tight, but it actually doesn't look like this side has the insert. That's all right though, because it looks like the bearing's in there real good. Man, that did some damage. That is for sure. I do think this is savable though. This is the worst of it right here. Like I said, I can cut that out, build up the weld, and then shape the case back to how it was originally. You can see this side does not have a brass insert around the crank bearing, but the bearing is tight. You don't want the bearings coming out on the crank. You want the bearings staying in the case, because otherwise that means that the case can be a little bit worn out, and the outer race can actually spin in the cases. And at that point, your cases are shot, or you have to get the brass inserts. But I think we should be good to go in that region. So looks like I got a little bit of welding to do and clean up. As for the crank, I think we're actually okay. I don't feel any play at all in the up and down motion. So this thing ate a skirt. Doesn't necessarily mean it did anything to the bearing. I'm going to have to clean that out and inspect it. That's to be determined. You can see this has been rebuilt before. Ooh, man. So here's all our engine parts laid out. Good news and bad news, I guess. Transmission appears to be good. That's good. And on the chassis, some things I noticed. The rear carrier bearings are shot. I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's a little bit of play there. They're on their way out. So those are going to get replaced. We got some Obor tires. The Obor Advent. It's the Advent S. So that actually, it's their competition compound. Super soft. These are supposed to be like ultra grippy. And then we got some AMS rims on there, brand new rims. And you'll notice it is a 4-lug pattern because the Quadzilla actually has 5-lug. But a lot of people swap over to Z400 or KFX 400 hubs. They're a direct swap. We had these KFX 400 hubs, painted them the Suzuki blue. Should match really nicely. We'll swap them out because these old tires, there's no way we were going to put down the power with these. These are wasted. All right, well, it looks like I got my work cut out for me. So the next step is going to be taking all these pieces, put them in the parts washer, clean them up so I can get a better look at them. And then I guess I'll just repair these cases. It's really weird. I forgot to point this out, but I don't know whoever did this work before, I don't know what they used as a case sealer, but it shouldn't be running in the cases like that. So that just kind of makes me question the work that was done on this engine in general, but it kind of just is what it is. That's the nice part about taking things down entirely, because now, we're going to know exactly what we're working with. After I'm done, it'll be all together, nice and solid. We won't have any issues, hopefully. I took all the Quadzilla stuff. We have everything nice and clean. We got a fresh cylinder. Not fresh, but more fresh than the old one. The cylinder that came off of the machine was totally trashed. This skirt was snapped, had fallen right into the bottom of the crank and just, tanked the whole thing. Totally grenaded. It didn't look exactly like this. I'd spent quite a good amount of time cleaning all the surfaces on this, making sure everything's I don't want to have any leaks or anything, especially the head. You can see I surfaced the head. Got my surfacing block over here. It's all nice and dirty. We're going to be using that a little bit more today too, because we're going to finish up these cases. But this is a very good cylinder. The sleeve is really nice and thick. I gave it a quick hone. It really almost didn't need anything. Cleaned up the exhaust port and just cleaned the hell out of it, man. It was really dirty. We're going to reuse the piston that he gave us with it too. I did have to clean the carbon and stuff off of it. You can see this had gotten hot. The carbon buildup on the underside of the piston, that's a sign that this might have been running a little bit lean. But the piston, I think, is in perfectly good shape. The skirts and everything look good. Yes, I did clean it up, but there's no deep grooves or anything. The tolerance in the side of the cylinder is tight. We should be good to go. This is not my budget, guys. So just keep that in mind before you start hammering me in the comment section. This is all on somebody else's budget. So this is essentially going to be a repair job, not a performance job. But it's going to be exciting just to get to know this motor inside and out. I've never even touched a Quadzilla before. But what's also cool is it's going to be tight. So I'm going to make sure that everything is really good to go. It doesn't matter that we're not putting performance stuff in. We can use used stuff. It's cool to do stuff in an economical way every once in a while. So anyways, here are all the other parts. We're putting a cool head on here. We've got the dome right here. You can see it's got an offset spark plug. I think that's so that it can clear the frame. This is such a big ass motor. But this was a huge recommendation. Apparently the stock heads like to warp. Got a Tusk competition clutch kit and springs. And we got some moose gaskets. We have a seat cover here. Gonna wrap up that seat. And those are actually graphics, believe it or not, factory style. Got brand new plastics for this thing. It's gonna look pretty nice. Got some gold bars there. Got some new levers and stuff for it. It'll look pretty trick. Here's what I want to do today. I want to get these cases prepared. So I've already done a really good cleaning job on these. You can see they need to be surfaced. They're just dirty. Like up here, whoever powder coated this, just they bolted the engine together and powder coated over everything. I mean, like the seals and everything have powder coat on them. You can see the shift shaft seal, powder coat right over it. And unfortunately, because of that, when I pulled the bolts out, a lot of the powder coat like snapped and cracked off. And they're not going to look terrible, but that sure shit doesn't look as good as it did. But yeah, so we're going to clean up all the surfaces. That's what our block is for. Make sure they're super flat. We don't want any leaks or anything. And of course, we have the repaired cases to contend with. So yeah, John and I fixed these up at his place.
John's going to pile up the weld. I shaved this out the other night and sort of angled it so that the weld will be piled on top, so that if it was to crack or something, all the force is coming from the inside out. So basically, John's just going to pile this up, and then I'm just going to clean it up. It'll look like it was never there. John actually noticed I missed this. I don't know if you guys can see. There was a weld, yeah, right there. Somebody had repaired this case before. That's pretty ugly too. So this thing has been cracked into quite a few times, most likely.
So before you guys go tearing up John, he's a totally new to TIG welding anyways. I can't TIG weld. I mean, I guess I could, but I have like no practice. So I had told John, and he's like, dude, bring it up here. I'll take care of it. And I know you guys are going to be, oh God. Oh my God, look at this thing. You guys are going to be tearing them up, I know it. But you got to realize TIG welding is kind of like an art. It's a skill that I plan to master one day. So he really just, the key was to make sure that this is going to be solid. So he like super blobbed it on there. But apparently he got really good fusion underneath of this. So it should be really nice. But when this is done, dude, you'll never even know. And it should be nice and strong. That's really all that matters. So we're going to do that. All right, now before we get to cleaning up those beautiful welds, what I want to do is take out our dowels. So these little dowels here, that's what keeps your covers aligned and everything. In order to surface this, they need to be removed. Now, I actually have these two dowels right here. I removed these from the center cases. They were tight, but they weren't that bad. These other ones are super tight, though. So I figure I'll show you a trick to get these things out, if we can get them out. And then we can go ahead and surface them. So as you can see, these are hollow. So if you really crush them down with, you know, like a pair of vice grips or something, they'll collapse. And then you're just going to have, it's going to be a pain in the ass probably. So what you can do is take drill bits and fit them in there. And that way when you grip it, it won't collapse. You get a really good grip on it. And when you do this, you don't want to be right up against the case, because when you're spinning, you'll mar up the case. Wow, it's like not even spinning. Oh, lovely. Oh man. That's just great. So you can see this dowel is splitting. It had a seam to begin with, but it's like pulling apart. Just making my job that much easier. At least it's moving. That's a sign that we're winning. These are like the stupid little things that when you send your bike off for work and it comes back with a huge bill and you're like, oh, that's ridiculous. Well, it's like shit like this. It's like super time consuming. This might need a little bit of heat. I can't believe how tight this is. We got it now. There we go. All right, now before we can surface these, I want to address our weld here. We can't really surface it until that's at least close to smooth. And when we surface it, that will take care of, you know, all of the finishing and making sure it's perfectly flat. All right, so there's that. There's definitely quicker ways to take that down, but that's probably the safest and most controllable way. You can see I almost got it flat. I don't want to go too much though, because if we go too low, then we'll have
a low spot there. So we'll get the rest of that out when we actually surface it. So now I'm going to go ahead and carve out this portion with the burr. It's not too bad. And you can tell it was repaired, but it's strong and it's smooth. So all that's really left to do for this case is to surface both sides.
Now, along with surfacing both sides of each case half, I decided to remove the lower cylinder studs. This way I could surface that portion where the cylinder jug actually meets the cases. It's notorious that Suzuki cylinders, they just don't have the best tolerances here, so I wanted to make sure it was flat, and I'm really glad I did because they were not flat at all. One of the dowels that I pulled out it gave me a little bit of trouble. I had to use the torch, and we finally got that one out. And then, of course, I cleaned out the cases really well because I did not mask off the bearings, and a lot of debris probably got in there.
All right, guys, check it out. You can see case surfaces are super flush. Our repairs are looking good. Here's the one repair. It was right here. Really doesn't look that bad. Honestly, you probably wouldn't notice it because there's other imperfections in there if you didn't know. On this side, you can see it. But it looks pretty good. Nice and flush. I don't think we'll have any leaking problems there. Up here, I had to play a little bit with this previous weld that was done just to clean it up. And on this side, right here is where the other brake was. You can see I had to contour this to the case. And if we flip this over, you can see that's nice and surfaced perfectly. Same thing with this side. Perfectly surfaced. Not going to have any leaks at all. This should be a really nice solid engine. And I even cleaned up our dowel pins. These should really be replaced. But you can clean them up and reuse them if you have to. You can see these cleaned up really nice. And I cleaned up the dowel pin holes so that they snap right in place. Nice and easy. They're still nice and tight, but now it won't be a pain in the ass pulling these things apart and putting them back together. Pop these things together because not only did I surface that, but I surfaced where our cylinder mates as well. And it needed it, man. These are probably the worst cases I've ever worked with. I had to take down quite a bit. I mean, not like a crazy amount, but more than I normally would. And even right here, you can see there's still a low spot. I don't want to go much lower than that, though, because you're going to be raising the compression the more that you take off of this thing. So now it should be nice and solid. I did have to clean this out also. I'm starting to think that these weren't mated cases. I think maybe the guy broke a case and it was replaced because these weren't even. They didn't match up at all. So I cleaned that up, made them match. I opened up this portion right here where the other repair was. So they should be good to go now. So in its entirety, I would say it took about, I'm going to say 6 hours to repair these cases. We had the brake that needed to be fixed. John welded that up. I'd say that took him about 30 to 45 minutes. He's a new welder, so it took him a little bit of time. And then between cleaning up the cases, surfacing the cases, removing stuck dowels, port matching some of this stuff, it's just time consuming, man, if you want to do it right. So time well spent, I would say. This thing is going to be super reliable. That's the biggest thing with this thing. I really want this to be reliable. Like I said, John's going to be taking this out to Little Sahara. I want to make sure that we have a good duner out there and something that's going to last the trip because the sand can be really demanding on machines. So I've got my transmission, my service manual, my crankcases, and I also have the crank in the refrigerator right now. So the metal will shrink slightly, and that should help us install it. I've gone ahead and put new crank bearings in here. I put new seals in the entire engine. So all of that stuff is already done. We might as well hop right into it. Before I do it, please give me a thumbs up if you enjoy these videos or if they help you out. I appreciate that a lot. And also consider subscribing if you've been enjoying the content. All right, let's jump into it. Yep. I think we got it. All right, now we're going to go ahead and crank this down. And as I'm doing that, you You guys see it's closing up the gap. And there it is. Line it up, and hopefully this thing just drops right in place. Take your time, make sure everything is lined up. Go.
All right, guys, it's about time to drop this engine in the frame, but I wanted to stop to thank you for making it this far into the video. I also wanted to take a second to thank some of the great companies that help make this channel possible. Companies like Rocky Mountain ATV, Rocket Ron Suspension, and Obor Tires all help keep me going. Links to their website and all applicable promo codes will be linked in the description below. If you're looking for a way to support the channel, using the links in the description helps me out big time by giving me a small kickback, and there's no extra cost to you. Also, if you're enjoying this video, please consider giving me a thumbs up and also consider hitting that subscribe button. That helps me out a ton. And if you're looking to support the channel even further, there is the option to join. All channel members get guaranteed responses to their comments. All right, guys, let's get back to the build. All right, guys, I have one goal today, and that is to get the Quadzilla running. Check it out. The engine is entirely assembled, came together relatively easily. A couple other things I want to do, though, after we do put that engine in the frame. I want to pop the air filter out of here. I haven't even looked at it yet. I definitely want to clean that, make sure that that's nice and clean before we go to the dunes. And I want to clean the carburetor. This thing is really dirty. I can tell without even taking the bowl off. And the other thing I want to do is finish off our tires. You can see we got a brand new Obor Advent tire right here on the front left. I already swapped that one out. And then the other side, I need to switch out. Okay, so let's hop into it. Let's take that engine and put it in the frame. But before we do that, remember to give me a thumbs up if you're enjoying these videos, and also hit that subscribe button and hit that little notification bell. I love you guys. Let's get to it. Whoa, wait, hold up. I jumped the gun there. What I want to do is get the carburetor in the ultrasonic cleaner before we do anything, so that way it can do its job while we're doing our job putting the motor in. So let's just pull this thing apart. First thing certain, oh, look at that, just popped right off. These are pretty dry rotted, these old lines. We'll get these out of the way. Just want to get everything apart. That way all the little nooks and crannies and stuff are nice and clean. Pull our bowl off here, see what we're working with. It's actually quite clean. I wonder if this was cleaned prior to John buying this. Regardless, I'm still going to throw it through the cleaner, and that way we'll know that all of the everything is clean. Because just because it looks clean doesn't necessarily mean that it's clean. All right, we're going to put this stuff into the ultrasonic cleaner. Here's our carburetor body. Only thing I didn't remove was the choke assembly. I pulled everything else apart. This one screw down here that holds the needle valve seat was stripped. Somebody thought they'd leave me a little surprise. A booby trap, if you will. But you can't beat me. I cut a slot in this thing and turned it into a flathead. Bitch ass bitch. You can't beat me. So this is actually a Harbor Freight ultrasonic cleaner. It's really probably bottom of the barrel, very entry level. But I'll tell you what, it gets the job done. You have to run it multiple times, like 10 times basically. And then I'm going to use Awesome. This stuff really is awesome. I've used this in other videos. You can get this at Dollar Tree. Oh my God. Oh, the heater's on. Did you guys hear that sizzle? Probably shouldn't have turned that on until there was fluid in here. I'll probably use about half of this. And then this is just really hot water. Now when I pop this on, the screen's probably going to go bzzz. Oh, it didn't do it. My old phone, it used to go crazy. It's going to be tough to see, but if you look really close, it's literally just pulling the dirt and grease off of the carburetor. It had like a tacky feel on the inside. It's a common issue with two-strokes when you don't maintain the carburetors. But yeah, so that'll get cleaned up nice and good. And now let's pull our air cleaner off so we can get this thing drying. See what we're working with in here. Because when we wash this thing, it's going to be wet. So I'll clean it now so that while we're putting the engine in, we'll give it some time to dry out. It's kind of cool. The frame is actually an intake tube on the Quadzilla, and it's the same on the LT250R, if I remember correctly. But that intake boot jams air into the airbox. Apparently this is another one of those things. Going open airbox is supposed to give a considerable gain of power on these Quadzillas. Well, the outerwear, ooh, look at that. It's like seeds or something. I don't know if an animal put them in here or what. There's all kinds of crap in there. Definitely this needs to be cleaned out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then while this is drying, we'll put the engine in. Actually, I remember reading in Dirt Wheels that if you put seeds in your air filter, you get better performance. Actually, I didn't.
Oh man, wow. Would you look at that? It actually went in fairly easy. I thought it was going to be more of a pain in the ass. Everything lined up really nice. I torqued all of the bolts. If I'm going to torque any bolts, motor mount bolts I think are really important. I put Loctite on all of those, especially on a two-stroke. You get a lot of vibrations and whatnot. Now you can see we got the shifter on there, the kickstarters on the other side. It's really easy to start throwing things together, especially because I'm getting really excited to get this thing fired up. But before we go any further, I want to check the squish. I didn't do that on the bench. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do that with these. If this damn camera would focus, please. I guess not. Okay, so what we're going to do here to measure the squish is we're going to use the solder method. So I have two pretty thick pieces of solder here. You have to make sure that this is at least as thick as the largest tolerance that you're looking for. So what we're doing is we're checking the area of between the squish band and the crown of the piston at top dead center. So how we're going to do that is by bending these and fishing them into the cylinder. I like to go to the sides of the cylinder. If you go front to back, the piston can rock this way, whereas it's not going to rock this way. And we go side to side. We do both sides just in case there is any little bit of movement in the piston. This way, if there's one on each side, there's an equal amount of pressure on each side. So what you want to do is bend this to about the end of the cylinder wall. Fit this in place. There we go. And I can feel it scraping up against the wall. So we're all the way on the one side there. And then we'll do the same thing with the other side. So you get those in place, and then I'm just going to kick it over a few times, and that's going to squish the ends of the solder, and then we can measure. All right, here is our solder. You guys can see the end is flattened out. So what we're going to do is take a pair of calipers. We're going to measure. See if this will focus. Just over 0.05 inches. That is 1.28 millimeters. I believe we're right in the money there. From what I read in my two-stroke manual, it is, I believe, 0.9 to 1.2 millimeters is the perfect squish for 300 to 500 cc's. And from what I caught on some forums, the 0.05 to 0.055 is ideal for the Quadzilla, so we should be good to go. And before we put everything on, let's go ahead and look and see what our carburetor parts look like, because we're gonna have to put this on anyways. Ooh, shit, that's actually really hot. You know what, let me pull this stuff out and I'll show you guys once I get it out of this dirty water. But you can see all that dirt and everything. I mean, the water was clean when we put it in there, pulled all that dirt out of the carb. Well, guys, unfortunately, after tinkering around with this carb, just looking at all the internal components and stuff, this thing really needs a rebuild kit, at the very least. Just, you know, the pieces are just like really worn out. I think we can make it work, but check this out. The needle was so brittle, the top actually snapped off. So we can't put the little C-clip on there. And this thing is rough. I don't know if it's pitted or what. Like, I'm not really sure if this thing had been sitting for a very long time or something, but the needle's actually rough. You can feel it. And it should just really be replaced. So that, along with, that's just an indicator that other components should probably be replaced too. I don't even know if this thing's going to leak. It's possible that the float valve needs to be changed out. Luckily, I do have a couple extra needles here. I didn't have the right one, but I was able to machine this one down, and it's very, very close to the one that came out. So we should be able to get going tonight. Basically just in the name of getting this thing fired up tonight, we'll run it like this. But I think I talked to John. We might actually swap this out for a different carb entirely. But for now, we'll put it on as it is, and we'll see if we can get it running. Oh man, we're ready to fire this thing up. Check it out. We're all set. Engine's in there, exhaust is in there, intake's on there. Clean the air filter, oiled the air filter, put that outerwear on there. We're gonna run it without the air box. Wired everything up. The only put 1,000 milliliters of the 20 weight 50 recluse oil in there. We're running on 95 octane with 24-to-1 Klotz Beanol. What else we got? I didn't put any coolant in it yet. I want to fire it up really quick, just make sure everything's working well, because if we have to tear it down, we'd have to spill out the coolant. It's okay to run it briefly with no coolant. You just don't want the engine to get hot. I don't see any leaks. It's always a good sign. No gas leaks, no oil leaks. So, shit, man, let's see if it starts. All right, here we go. First start attempt. We'll try it with the choke on. Oh, this is a twist throttle. It's definitely got compression. Key. I'm playing games no more, bro. Every time I kick this damn thing, my toe hits the peg. Let's make sure we get a spark. Alright, let's try this again. We got a spark. I don't think the spark plug boot was all the way clipped down though. Here we go, come on. Shit, that surprised me. I honestly was not expecting it to start. Whoo-wee, man, is it smoky in here. Well, it runs. I'm pretty excited about that. It's got like a really deep, powerful tone, man. It sounds sick. But you can tell it is mad rich. It was getting flooded out every time. I backed the fuel air screw. I leaned it out literally to the max. I came out like 4 turns, and it doesn't want to idle. So I have the idle screw turned all the way in. The only way to make it idle is really to crack the throttle just a little bit, and you saw it dies out. So I'll have to play with the jetting, but we got a runner here. Wasn't the easiest start. Had to break out Das Boot. You hear that? That's the sound of success. Check this thing out. Whoa. Look at that. Swapped out the Mikuni for a 40mm key in. You guys are not going to believe how cheap that carburetor was. I'm going to show you guys in a second. Now I can actually like ride it around. It's like decent. It's not easy to start, but it's a lot easier to start than before. I was able to do it with regular sneakers. Definitely not easy, but you know. And it's not leaking, I swear. That's because I was doing jetting and kept having to dump the carburetor to change the jets out. But it's running really well. It's been running for probably 20 minutes. Got the fan on in the front just in case. I don't want it to overheat. So yeah, let me tell you about this carburetor though. Believe it or not, that's actually a replica carb. And it only costs 32 bucks. Check this out. I mean, this looks pretty legit to me. Key-in on there is spelled correctly. Sudco. The carburetor itself, I mean, it feels just like a genuine key-in too. And if it's not scary seeing how good the carburetor looks, wait till you see the box. So I have two boxes here. One is the knockoff, one is genuine. If it wasn't for this made in China sticker, I mean, honestly, they look identical besides like the part numbers. And then on this side, I noticed they taped off a segment of the box. I wonder if that would make it like illegal or something. Let's see what the inside looks like. Pretty legit. I wish I had a 38 or a genuine carb here to actually compare it side by side. And it looks like standard key-in style jets. I'm assuming the genuine key-ins will swap right over, which we will be using genuine jets in this at least. Crazy. So now that we basically have the engine sorted out, we're gonna have to do a little bit of tuning, but I can't really do that until I can actually ride the quad, put it under some load. But for now, the way that it sits, I'm ready to get all the other stuff done. We have the brand new O-bore tires we're gonna throw on this thing. I wanna do the carrier bearings because they are roasted. We have a steering stem coming. That, I don't know if that'll be in the mail today or not. That thing's been on back order. Keeps saying that it's like out for delivery, but it never comes. So I don't know what the deal is with that. Also got handlebars, levers, grips. And I also wanna bleed the brakes because these are really mushy. They suck. I also have a seat cover. I put a new seat cover on this thing, new plastics, graphics, and make this thing actually look like a quad. Now, the first thing I want to do is get rid of these old, dingy, shitty tires and replace them with some brand new O-bore Advents. But before I do that, remember to give me a thumbs up if you enjoy these videos and consider hitting that subscribe button. So I'm going to go ahead and take these off. I just got a cool new tool that I want to show you guys. It's a bead breaker. If it wasn't for that, probably just do this on my own time. So this is the cool new tool right here. It's a bead breaker. I picked this up at Harbor Freight. I will have a link in the description below where you can get one of these. Super simple tool. It's pretty self-explanatory. You can probably see how it works. This goes on the lip of your rim. You press this down and it'll take the bead off of the tire. So with all this stuff here, we should be able to change the tire out. We got a brand new O-bore tire there. Got some Motion Pro tire irons and some old school tire irons. And of course some Windex just to help ease the tire on. And I've also got a valve stem removal tool. So that's the first thing I'm going to do is remove the valve stem and get all the air out of these tires. So we'll put our rim in here. There's a little lip here that holds the tire from scooting away from us. And sometimes you got to do this a couple times. Oh, there it goes. Pop the bead right off. There we go. That one was a little more stubborn. That's pretty cool though, isn't it? So now we're gonna get these off. What you wanna do is tuck the one half of your tire so that it goes into this belly in your rim. And when you do that, it'll enable you to get this spoon in over here. Go. All right, so now I like to put a towel down because things can start to slide around, especially once you introduce any kind of soap into the mix, and on a tile floor, things just want to slip and move. So the towel just keeps things from moving. They have to have bears on them, otherwise it's not gonna work. Take our new valve stem, it's a shorty, I like these. Put a little bit of soap on this to ease it through. You come through the back side, go to the front, the valve stem tool. This will just spin into place, and then you just pull it through. Boom, pops right into place. I like to spin it just a couple times just to make sure that the rubber is seated and you don't get any air leaks or anything. I'm gonna take my Windex and just get it all over the bead and the inside lip of the tire. You can sometimes push them into place and it'll pop on the bead. It depends on the tire and the rim. But you keep the weight on the one side, otherwise it'll slip. You see I'm keeping my knee over here so that the bead doesn't just slip around this side. Now the tire's on there. There's one thing I actually forgot to do, and that is clean the inner lip of the bead. This one was in pretty good shape, so we probably wouldn't have a problem. But a lot of times dirt and debris and stuff gets like caked up against there, and if you don't clean that out, your bead won't seat and you'll get leaks around the bead. Luckily, because we haven't seated the bead, I'm able to get in here with a Scotch-Brite and just clean up that inner bead. Don't really have to do much. This one wasn't that bad. It's just a good habit to get into when you put new tires on though, just to ensure you don't get leaks. And then we'll clean off the debris. Go ahead and fill it up. Luckily this one took. Sometimes, oh, it's gonna pop on real quick. I don't know if you guys can see it working its way around. Oh, the other side went. Boom. Both sides are good to go. Yeah, sometimes if the air doesn't want to take, you gotta put like a strap around it sometimes, and it can be a real pain in the ass. I'm gonna bring these down probably to 9 foot-pounds for the front. All right, get this thing in place. Quadzilla's got these tiny little studs. I don't know why, but they're from 1987 and they still haven't bent or anything, so I guess you don't really need more. And of course, don't forget your valve stem cover, because if you forget that, like, what are we even doing here? All right, now I want to go ahead and take off the axle assembly because we have to swap out our carrier bearings, and we can throw our brand new O-board tires on the back as well. First thing we have to do is break loose this axle nut. Sometimes that can be a major pain in the ass. The best way to keep the tire from moving really is to have somebody sit on the quad and hold the brake, and especially having their weight on the quad too. It keeps the wheels from spinning and everything. It's just nice. Since we don't have anybody here, I've created a method to help hold the rear brake when you break those loose. You take a clamp and clamp your brake pedal down to something. In this case, I was able to clamp it to the stand. There you go. Those hubs are way loose. But yeah, now our axle won't spin, brake is nice and tight. All right, now we'll take our big ass wrench and pray to God that this thing comes off. We got it moving. That's good. All right, the axle nuts are off, so we're gonna take our rear caliper off so we can slide the brake rotor away. Get our axle out, so we got 2 bolts holding our caliper stay. On the bottom, one here, and then there's one up here I'm gonna break loose just so that we can bring this whole thing up. Now we're able to sneak it up. A lot of these bolts were not very tight. Before I move on, I wanna take our hubs off. Oh, wow. Finger tight. Big surprise. All right, well, this axle is stuck really good. I don't know what is holding this because it does move. There's no clips or anything in there. I looked in the service manual. It should come out from this side. Before we do too much damage to the end of our axle, I have a trick that I like to do. Take a piece of pipe that has the same inner diameter as your splines, and that'll fit on there, and you can go to town on this, smashing the hell out of it, and you shouldn't just damage anything. See if we can finally get this thing out of here.
All right, guys, we're hitting this thing way too hard. It definitely should have come out by now. Even if one of the inner races of the bearings was seized to the axle, it should have pushed the bearing out. So I took the axle nuts off of the other side of the axle, and sure enough, the axle popped right out. The wording in the Suzuki service manual is a little bit confusing. It looks like you hit it from the right side to the left, but apparently the axle comes out of the right side.
Well, that was fun, but at least nothing broke and only a few tears were shed. So I brought those in and then I loosened them up because we're gonna have to adjust this axle anyways. Now we have these studs that go in the back. This is what allows us to adjust our chain. This one, I had to retrace the entire thing with a die because some genius tried to force a standard bolt on here. But we all do dumb things, right? I just tried pushing the axle out the wrong side for like an hour and a half. And now, for the moment you've all been waiting for. Finally put on these brand new rims and tires. Dude, check these out. That is aggressive. I love the look of the Advent tires from Obor. They just look killer. Also got the chain on there. I have it pretty tight because I imagine that's going to have to stretch a little bit. I did adjust the chain. I torqued these down, 70 foot-pounds on this side, 60 on this side. Wheels are all good to go. So the whole back end is ready to rock and roll. And what's scary is that I can actually ride it the way that it sits right now. But we're not going to do that. What I want to do is put the steering stem on. Check this out. Got a brand new LSR +2+0. It's either, yeah, I think it's a +2+0. Really nice steering stem. You can see it's stepped up right here. And of course, we got the risers. Got some gold levers, Pro Taper bars, new Scott grips. And we have a seat cover and graphics over here. And this too. Temperature gauge I'm going to get on there. That's from Mod Quad. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to go ahead and get all this stuff on there. Oh, and new bearings and bushings for the steering stem. So everything should be really nice and tight. Let's get it. See those two tabs? On the OEM one, there's no tabs. That is for 88 to 90, I believe. So they sent the wrong steering stem. We don't have time to waste, so I'm gonna cut them off, and this should still work. Yeah, that's not even close. Definitely gonna have to do some modifications to this thing. All right, there it is, guys. I finally got it to fit. Pretty time consuming getting it to this state. Had to take a lot off, but it should look good. What did we learn? We learned that a 5-minute job can turn into an hour-and-a-half long job. So our steering stem, we had to modify. Wrong year sent. That wasn't as bad, but these levers ended up taking about an hour and a half to get them to work right. I might still have to do a little bit of adjusting with them. Put a new clutch perch on here for John. I took this junk, clunky piece of crap out of here. Definitely looks way more streamlined and clean with just a basic clutch perch, and it fit on this one. That one, it would have taken even more modification. If those were the right levers, it would have been a 5-minute job. Literally just swap them right in. When you get cheap stuff, a lot of times things don't fit. It's not even close. It's like a universal kind of deal, and then it ends up being something like that. So we're pretty close to, I mean, I could ride it how it is now. I also snuck the temperature gauge in under here. It has to be on this upper line because the flow comes down this line, through the impeller, up the cylinder, and then out the top. So if you had it down here, that would be fluid coming through the radiator after it's already cooled. It wouldn't really be very effective. So that's why I had to tuck it way up under here so that the coolant comes right out of the head and it goes right to the temperature gauge. So that should be very accurate in that position. All right, it is finally time to put on the plastics. This is what I've been waiting for.
All right, guys, check it out. It was super rich. Now it idles nice, and it actually starts like fairly easily, and it feels like it's got a little bit more power. I was cruising around on it just a little bit, and it was just falling on its face. I was like, I can't even post this. I was recording it. I was like, dude, this ain't right, man. We got to do the Quadzilla some justice.
With just a few days before the Dune trip, I had John come over so we could dial in the carburetor and get this Quadzilla running great for the trip.
First time I'm getting to take the Zilla out. Down here with Michael Sabo, he's got his 450. We're gonna go do some testing soon. See if we can get this puppy dialed in.
And that thing has got a deep tone. I know, the bottom end is crazy.
That was third gear. Dude, it's like reps. Did you hear
Let's
that
see where it's
tiny
at.
bit of like breaking up in the top end?
Yes, I did. We were good. 185-ish.
That's good.
185. Yeah, it's not bad. That actually sounded rich.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Exactly what I thought.
Let's go down on the main, one clip up on the needle,
Yep.
because that will make the main a little bit richer,
Yep.
but just a little.
Yep.
So we'll come down on the main, up on the pilot, and up on the needle.
Yep.
I think we'll be good.
Yes.
Let's give it a shot.
All right, cool.
Let's watch this. I've
been doing-
So this isn't terrible to change out the jets, but that's because I did it like 60 freaking times. So like you get. Hopefully I'll be getting better at it, you know? You can have the pleasure of putting this thing back together, because getting the throttle cable on's a bitch.
Oh, yeah.
It's your quad though, you need to learn how to do this.
Yeah, you're right.
John's booting up the carb.
Trying.
John, would you say this is the easiest part of the job?
Yes, easily the hardest part of the job.
See if it'll start without choke, now that we bumped up the pilot. Yeah.
Comes up quicker.
Yeah. Don't forget it's not warm, so if you're gonna do a clutch dump,
I'll do a lap or two.
it sounds really good now.
It does.
It's crazy. Oh man. Does it feel a lot better?
Big difference.
It's crazy how much jetting can make a difference. Thing sounds way better.
After a few more minor adjustments, we got the Quadzilla dialed in almost perfectly and making really good power.
Oh my god!
You're laughing down there.
Oh my god, dude. That makes some wheelies all the way out.
Way better, man.
That sounds a lot better.
Yeah. This thing is like a giggle machine.
Yeah, it is. It does. Yes, they do.
With just a few days left, the Quadzilla made it to the Little Sahara sand dunes without any problems at all, with the exception of one minor problem we had with one of the wires hanging too low from the wire harness and melting to the exhaust, causing it to short out. But once we discovered that, we had no problems anymore. The Quadzilla truly is an iconic quad, and there's really no other machine that runs quite like it. I don't think I've ever ridden a two-stroke that has so much torque down low and literally rides like a four-stroke even in the sand. They really do make great dune machines. So thank you for making it all the way to the end of the video. I appreciate everybody that watches these videos. Please, if you enjoyed the video, leave a thumbs up and also leave a comment below. Let me know what you think of this Quadzilla and let me know what bikes you want to see me build in the future. For more content like this, consider subscribing, and if you're looking to support the channel even further, there is the option to join. All channel members get guaranteed responses to their comments. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.
Dude, you're ripping on that thing.
We gotta stop. This is way too much fun.
Oh my god. Dude, I just said to the people listening, I said, dude, you're ripping that thing. You have more fun on that than I've seen you have on the KFX.
Well, the KFX is so loud. We can't do that down here.
Dude, it's legit.
I think it's like I was saying, you got to get used to it, because just doing that a little bit, you need a lot of body language.
Yes.
Just do that little power side.
Yep.
In order to feel safe, I felt like I really had to.
Well, and then the seat kind of stops you from hanging over the edge.
Yeah, but it's comfy.
It is comfy. That's what makes it a great, like, it's like riding a couch, dude.
Tuner, man.
It's riding a couch with a two-stroke 500 motor on it.
I honestly think it feels really good.
It does.
I think it cleaned up. Let's see what the temperature
Quite a bit.
Just under 200.
Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad for all the ripping we're doing. And we'll keep an eye on it. Maybe when we get out there, we might have to richen up a little bit. Yeah, buddy.
I think for sure. It's almost hitting 200 in the field. We
Yeah.
can really open it up, dude, if you're riding for a long period of time.
Yep.
But it'll be getting so hot, once you'll have all the heat in the pipe. I think
Yeah. Yeah, we'll be okay. That sounds all right, though. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, dude, that's sick.
Yeah, dude.